gentlemen, and welcome to today's webcast. I'd now like to introduce our host for today, Sue Boffman. Sue, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to today's webcast on the New Roles for New Times report, Digital Curation for Preservation. I am Sue Boffman, Associate Deputy Executive Director at the Association of Research Libraries. I am serving as the lead for ARL's program on transforming research libraries. Today's webcast is organized by the Association of Research Libraries, whose 126 members include many of the largest libraries in the U.S. and Canada. Thank you for joining us today as we introduce the first of 5 reports in our New Roles for New Times series. Our goal for this webcast is to provide an opportunity for the authors of the first report, Tyler Walters and Katherine Skinner, to set the stage for their work in identifying new roles for libraries and librarians in digital curation for preservation work. In addition, we have 4 responders who will briefly share their reflections about the findings and recommendations. I want to say just a couple more things before I turn the mic over to Tyler and Katherine. We have planned time at the end of the webcast for answering questions submitted by the viewers. We will talk about how you can send in questions for the presenters when we get to that portion of the program. I think it is important to explain why ARL decided to develop the New Roles for New Times report series. ARL's latest strategic plan calls on the Transforming Research Libraries program to initiate new visioning and scanning activities that specifically foster transformational change in research libraries. This report series is an opportunity to call upon expertise in the community to explore a range of new roles in serving research institutions, researchers, scholars, and students. We started the New Roles project last year by identifying an array of issues that research libraries are addressing as they think about the challenges of transformation. 5 areas were selected for the first phase of this project. Authors with the background, knowledge, and expertise were invited to write the reports. We plan to publish the remaining 4 reports by the end of the year. Other reports will cover graduate students, liaison roles, repository services, and print collection management. Each author or authors have been asked to use their experiences to describe the new roles for libraries and librarians and the impact these roles will have. By also providing background information and reviewing current trends, the authors will discuss issues they consider key to helping the community create new strategies in delivering services. We hope this series of reports will serve to educate us in our deliberations and planning. With that background information covered, let me introduce our authors, Tyler Walters and Katherine Skinner.
Okay.
Tyler Walters is the Dean of the University Libraries at Virginia Tech. Prior to this, he was the Associate Dean of the Library and Information Center at the Georgia Institute of Technology, where he was involved in a number of digital initiatives, including Georgia Tech's repository and the IMLS-funded Georgia Knowledge Repository, a statewide service. Katherine Skinner is the Executive Director of the Educopia Institute, a not-for-profit educational organization that fosters the advancement of shared information systems and infrastructures. Katherine also serves as the program manager for the Meta Archive Cooperative, a distributed digital preservation solution for cultural memory organizations. So now, Tyler and Katherine, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sue. Hi, everybody. This is Tyler Walters. I thought I'd just make a couple of very brief comments at the beginning here, and Katherine Skinner, my co-author, will have a chance to do the same. Just wanted to walk through very quickly just kind of why this report and why the kind of the structure and approach that we chose, just to clue you in a little bit more into our own thinking as authors. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read it, or at least go through the brief executive summary and get a feel for what this is about. And I think at the beginning we recognize that, the act of curating materials in libraries and archives is actually an old role. And the focus of this report series is really new roles for new times. So what's new about this? And clearly it's the digital aspects to this. So I think the things that are really new that we're dealing with is this huge and different types of content that's out there. It's so proliferating so quickly, and the types, formats, and varieties of content are so different that it's a great challenge for us, and that everybody, I think a lot of people out there, there's a lot of players in this field. It's not just libraries and archives that are trying to do something here about this. So we began with this sense of introduction and that section on critical moment for research libraries. And really the whole question there is, does the research library community want to be a leader and participant in a big way in this realm? Because there are many other groups out there that do work in this area. We have, there's companies, there are technology specialists, there's a wide variety of other types of people who work in this space. We went on from there to kind of think more broadly in terms of the context, and we kind of labeled that the information ecosystem that we find in our research institutions. And what's happening there is we very much wanted to put our roles in this new and developing role kind of in that broader ecosystem. From there, we talked about exactly what research libraries are and can be doing and will be doing more in the future, and what librarians will do. What specifically are some of these roles, and what are we morphing into? Next, we thought it was good in the report to highlight a lot of existing collaborations. And to me, the interesting thing is I think just about every one of the collaborative strategies that are highlighted in the report have developed in less than 10 years, maybe 8 or so, close to 10. So the point is, this is very new, and we're seeing this happen a lot. So when we look at what's happening in digital curation, we're seeing an awful lot of partnership. We go on there to make some general recommendations about what your library can do. And we also included some appendices that really cover specific disciplinary considerations. On one hand, you can see a lot of similarities between groups like the sciences and humanities. And, of course, on the other hand, there's very particular things that have developed in each of those realms. And we definitely wanted to provide more context, I think, more context of research institutions and the ecosystem and what we're really doing there. So very quickly, I wanted to just call people's attention to some of the major themes that we saw as we wrote this report. And I think Katherine will chime in more on this end as well. I have 5 here that I've kind of kept in my head. And one of them is very simple, but that we're concentrating on digital curation as the life cycle of an information object. And in that sense, in this new role, I think perhaps one of the biggest aspects of it being a new role is creation and production of digital objects of scholarly or research value, not necessarily just preservation and dissemination. Of course, that's part of it. That's all part of the cycle. So it's that front end of the cycle is getting more attention, and we, as a community of research libraries, are getting more involved in that as well. We're definitely talking about born digital intellectual resources that are coming from the faculty and students and staffs of our research institutions. And again, this is just growing exponentially, the manner and type and variety of content that has some level of intellectual value that can be kept. Another dynamic that we're seeing, and we try to highlight through the report, is collaboration. And it's an often used word. I think some of our panelists will probably speak to this, but we're seeing a lot of interinstitutional collaboration. But I'd also want to highlight that at the individual library level, there's a lot of internal or intra-institutional cooperation and collaboration going on. I think we're working more closely as librarians and archivists with technologists who are available to us on our campuses, as well as the domain scholars and scientists. So these really become true partnerships that we're involved in, as opposed to just, how can the library serve you? It's more, it's service, but it's much more of a partnership mentality, I believe. For research libraries, too, it's about building capacity. It's about seeing this as a challenge to ourselves, to our future, to our ability to be successful, and that research libraries, that we should be building capacity to do these things, that we need to gain a measure of self-reliance on ourselves, and to develop trusted partners to go forward with digital curation and preservation. And lastly, I think what we really are seeing is this phenomenon where libraries are becoming more embedded. Kind of already mentioned this, but the idea that we really get embedded into the domains that we partner with in terms of digital curation and that cycle of production and dissemination and organization and preservation of digital objects of scholarly value. So we're much more integrated. We're not necessarily this building up on the hill where all the books are. That's an aspect of our work, but that we're much more embedded in developing and designing and promoting and accessing digital resources that we kind of co-produce with people on our campuses. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katherine and let her add her comments.
Great. Thank you, Tyler. So I just want to amplify a couple of the things that Tyler already pointed out about the thematic structure of some of what we were both thinking about and writing about in this report, particularly the themes of integration and collaboration. So on the integration side, this comes into the same territory that Tyler was just talking about with embedded librarians. There's a need for integration of roles across all of the divisions of the library first and foremost. So we've seen in our pasts as research libraries a kind of division of the digital as the digital has started to grow up within our libraries into its own little segment. And usually that segment was grant funded as it started. And then perhaps over the last couple of years, it's become more integrated into the culture of the library. But very, very rarely, and with very few exemplars, are we seeing full integration across each of the existing divisions of the library, the public services, et cetera, to make sure that we aren't just building isolated and thus not as effective as it could be digital apparatus. We need to make sure that we are honoring the fact that no part of the library is untouched by the digital realm. Simultaneous with that, we have to be looking at the larger campus. So we talk a good deal in the report about the larger campus and how the larger campus, likewise, isn't untouched by the digital realm. Each one of the segments of the larger campus tends to be moving in digital directions. And I think both Tyler and I worry a bit about the stability of resources that are created and maintained by lots of different campus units on various campuses around the country and beyond. And the way that those are being managed by lots of different people with different ideas, whether you're talking about the IT department or whether you're talking about, sub-departments or, the sciences versus the social sciences versus the humanities. All of these different divisions within our academic culture have the possibility of dividing out our attention in ways that are not going to be helpful to the long-term stability of the resources that we're creating. And I think Tyler and I both believe very strongly that the library can be a central and grounding force for the overall academic community to make sure that there is a consistent pattern of digital curation from the moment that things are created to the moment that those things are preserved in an ongoing sort of way. The other major theme that Tyler and I spent a lot of time talking about prior to even beginning this report is collaboration. So collaboration across the different units of campus on the one hand, and then also across libraries on different campuses to produce infrastructures and practices that we can run and own for ourselves as libraries. And I think, ARL libraries are the ones that are best positioned to take on this kind of work. Smaller libraries don't often have the infrastructure, even when they partner with one another, to really sustain large initiatives. But the ARL libraries, if we can make sure that the ARL libraries are involved and are leading the way, as we already see with some of these exemplars that we highlight in the collaborative strategies for digital curation and preservation section of the report, then we have a really strong chance of maintaining our ownership over our cultural resources and over this part of work that we as libraries have been undertaking for a long, long time. So looking at the next 5 to 10 years and the most important things that libraries can be doing, one of the major themes in the report is pointing out that this collaborative activity and making sure that we are maintaining our control wherever we can over our resources and over our technologies is going to be to our best interest as we move forward as research libraries. And I'll close there and hand it back over.
Thank you, Tyler and Katherine, for building a context for the emerging roles you identified for libraries and librarians in digital curation. In case you missed the first few minutes of the webcast, I'm Sue Boffman, and I lead ARL's program on transforming research libraries. It is my pleasure now to introduce the next segment of the webcast. This is where we will hear from 4 people who will share their thoughts and reactions to the report. We will hear from each panelist before we move to the question and answer segment of the program. Our first speaker is Jeremy York. Jeremy is a project librarian for the HathiTrust Digital Library at the University of Michigan Library. He also authored a section in the report on HathiTrust.
Thank you very much. First, I just want to thank ARL for initiating this series and Tyler and Katherine for their excellent report. It's really quite expansive in what it covers. It's exciting to see ourselves moving into some of the roles they describe and also envision what we can be and do. So I'm very glad to be a part of this discussion. HathiTrust is one example of a collaboration at a large scale, partnering institutions collaboratively owning and managing a repository of shared assets that is bringing about or enabling in very tangible ways many of the new roles set out in the report. The HathiTrust partners are seeking to reduce costs while maintaining and improving their ability to serve their constituencies by sustaining a shared, centralized, and I would note geographically distributed infrastructure for preserving and providing access to shared digital content, and then leveraging those digital resources to gain efficiencies in managing their print collections. And this is a strong current area of work. Now, one of the key ideas of this collaboration is to create an environment where, having freed resources through these efficiencies, the partners are able to focus on activities that may be more properly sourced and scaled, to cite concepts Lorcan Dempsey and others have used, at a local institutional level and participate in new collaborative opportunities at the group and network levels that they had not previously envisioned or engaged in. In light of this, and especially as HathiTrust has begun to take in more varied content from varied sources, something I've been thinking about a lot is the role of libraries in working with students, faculty, and researchers at their institutions in the preparation of data for further curation and preservation. This has been already talked about and is a theme in the report as well. This kind of work seems ideally placed at the local level, but it extends more broadly as materials are able to enter a wider domain of curation. So I'm excited to see the kind of developments that will emerge in this area. I think because of some of the challenges libraries have in working closely with scholars, namely the high cost of interaction, the reluctance of institutions to take responsibility sometimes for the digital products of research, that managing these relationships at the system level in the systems and resources available will be an important part of succeeding in this role. I wanted to make one more point about the local level role of librarians related to digital humanities in particular. The final appendix of the report talks about the importance of libraries reaching out to scholars, being aware of and involved in projects, and the idea of preservation begins at creation. In one of the articles referenced in the report, Clifford Lynch talks about cyber infrastructure in the humanities and the gap between national and international cyber infrastructure and what is often needed at the campus level. And he talks about the need for a deployment of infrastructure that supports local needs but is able to interact with national and international efforts as well. And one way of supporting this, which HathiTrust is engaged in and goes along with the model of a centralized resource, is the idea of bringing the researchers to the data. That is, assembling a comprehensive archive of materials and allowing different kinds of access and the development of tools and services to occur in concert with the data in an environment that's collaboratively owned, managed, and used by a number of institutions. And I'm referencing in particular the emerging HathiTrust Research Center, which there will be some announcements about soon. But this arrangement allows the sharing of tools and resources across multiple projects, provides a cohesive environment for collaboration, and enables uniform capture of provenance information and metadata to enable preservation, appraisal, further use of materials emerging from research. And so addressing to some degree this problem of the high cost of ingest. So those are some of the areas in the report that stuck out for me. There are a number of areas there, as I mentioned, but I think this period of redefining ourselves and our roles is challenging in many ways, but also, of course, very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to the ways we develop and adapt.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. We are next going to hear from Martha Anderson. Martha is the Director of Program Management for the National Digital Information Infrastructure and Preservation Program at the Library of Congress. She also serves on the steering committee managing the communications for the International Internet Preservation Consortium. Martha, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with all of you today and to have an opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is collaboration, which is a major theme in the report that Tyler and Katherine put together for you. From the very beginning, the INDIP program, through the original legislation, was required to work together with other federal agencies, with libraries and archives, and with content and technology stakeholders to tackle the challenges of preserving digital information. So working together was a key element of the funded projects in 2003 when we began. Proposals were required to present a project and a stated set of partners to work together on the project. And over the years, the program staff at the library and the partners were keenly aware of partnership strategies and the challenges to making those strategies work. We always would say the INDIP motto was learn by doing, so experience was our teacher. We learned together that just working on a common problem is not enough to strengthen collaborative networks. Collaboration comes out of iterative work that builds trust. And one of the things we found for successful collaborations was that there was an understanding of common value as well as common work, and that from time to time those who were working together examined again their values. You know, what did they value? Did they value openness? Did they value exchanging information? Was the content the most value? So those sorts of things. But one of the things about collaboration I think is really the most important thing to think about is that partners must be able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of other partners and also be able to confront their own weaknesses as well as honor their own strengths. So before beginning a collaboration, an organization needs to ask two questions. One, what are we good at? In other words, what can we uniquely contribute to this work? And two, what does our organization need? Where are we lacking in expertise or resources? Collaboration means that all partners commit something to the work, but that they also draw benefit from that work. So it's nice to be altruistic and say public service is a good intention, but ultimately if your organization doesn't find some benefit from the collaboration, then the collaboration can't be sustained. The report in the final section, the concluding recommendations, I think provides a roadmap for entering into collaborations, and I just wanted to cover a couple of the elements here. One says stake a claim in the production cycle, and to me this is about defining your contribution. What is the area that you have the best skills or you can bring the most to the table? Another one was be a doer, not a broker, whenever possible. And to me, this is about really building a level of commitment or thinking very clearly about how committed you are to the collaboration. One was consider digital curation collaborations. And I think this recommendation is a challenge to assess where your organization needs help and where it can benefit. The fourth one I wanted to mention was actualize collaborative engagement. And I think this means to make that sustained commitment to learn together and to build trust. And I think it's only by working together with mutual benefit and contribution that collaborations can be sustained. I thank you very much.
Thank you. We are next going to hear from Oya Rieger. Oya is the Associate University Librarian for Digital Scholarship Services at Cornell University Library. She oversees the library's digitization, online repository, digital preservation, electronic publishing, and e-scholarship initiatives. Oya, over to you.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be a part of this panel. And first, I would like to comment Tyler and Katherine on writing such a comprehensive report. It presents concrete and inspiring examples. And as I was reading the report, inevitably, I think my home institution, Cornell, was the context for interpretation. I think to a certain extent, think globally, act locally principle applies to our exploration of new roles. Institutional grassroots efforts are critical, I think, in building broader and scalable infrastructures, especially when we are experimenting with new service areas. As articulated in the report, digital scholarship as a library program area is in an early stage of development. Therefore, as we consider emerging roles, I personally find it useful to understand the inevitable tensions between local circumstances and broader visions. To this end, actually, I was very pleased to see in the report a recommendation in regard to embedded librarianship, which actually Katherine, in her remarks, also mentioned. I think embedded librarianship is an important concept for us because it's not only for facilitating direct participation in academic life, but also for understanding the dynamics of everyday priorities and challenges of local scholars in a holistic way. A related recommendation in the report is our role as observers and anthropologists of information users and producers. Again, I think it's critical that we examine and understand the scholars' information production and consumption habits, especially within the context of their daily flow of practices, because just like us, they juggle priorities. There is actually growing evidence pointing to the gap between our visions of digital research and learning environments and actual practices and perceptions of scholars. A very familiar example is from our early institutional repository implementations. You all will remember that one of the lessons we learned from the initial institutional repository development efforts was the differences in value propositions that IT and library community had and the researchers held. Concepts such as open access, data sharing, preprint servers were being perceived and really put into practice differently by these two groups. I want to kind of highlight this just to emphasize the importance of being there, being local, and understanding how these services are being perceived. In their report, Katherine and Tyler also emphasized the importance of staking a claim in the production cycle. And they actually recommend considering new services in creating, multimedia and other digital assets. And examples they give include, e-publishing services, copyright and IPR services, or digital art curation. And I think this is yet another really important principle that is included in the report. And it also reminded me of another tension that it's just, as I said, awareness is, I think, very beneficial for us, which is our sense of new roles and responsibilities versus how we are being perceived by our constituents. And it's actually really, this just occurred to me, especially when I was reading a report yesterday by Ethica. You might have seen Ethica's most recent report. I think it was published maybe yesterday. It's called Insights from U.S. Academic Library Directors. One of the examples they gave to demonstrate this gap was almost all of the library leads surveyed listed teaching information literacy to undergraduates as a very important role for their libraries, whereas, according to the report, only a very small percentage of faculty members recognize the role of the library in teaching support. So how do we remedy such a potential misalignment when we are searching for new roles? And I think previous speakers also made this point. I think it's really our systematically making an effort to engage engage in local teaching, research, and other scholarly activities upstream before they become programs. So just to sum up, I think the future, as outlined by the report, is very exciting, and I just wanted to mention a couple of tensions that are actually could be really productive tensions if we are engaged and if we are aware of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Oya. We will now hear from our fourth panelist, Patricia Cruz. Patricia is the director of the University of California Curation Center at the California Digital Library. She works collaboratively with the 10 UC campuses to develop sustainable strategies for the curation and preservation of digital content that supports the research, teaching, and learning mission of the university. Patricia co-authored a section in the report on the UC Curation Center. Patricia, it's over to you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for the great comments and the wonderful report. I think these are really new roles and exciting times. And one thing I just want to talk about really quickly in the time that I have is the UC Curation Center, and then provide an example of how we're working collaboratively. The UC Curation Center, formerly we were the preservation program, and we re-envisioned ourselves about a year and a half ago when we recognized that the amount of content and diversity of content coming our way was just growing and growing, and we also had a growing base of stakeholders, and they had a diversity of needs and changing needs, and this was all with the backdrop of inevitable technological change and also declining budgets, and it really asked us to pivot and to rethink about how we were working and how we were delivering our services to our users. And so we developed the UC Curation Center at the California Digital Library that we view as a creative partnership between the California Digital Library, the 10 campuses of the UC, the UC libraries, and other peer institutions, where we look at together have a community of shared concern and practice to channel and pool our expertise, and together creating robust and innovative, cost-effective solutions. And this new approach has really allowed us to create a dynamic, both organizational approach and technical approach, and that is three things of simple and flexible infrastructure, both organizational infrastructure and technical infrastructure. And we also partner when necessary, and partner within the university and external to the university, but we outsource when it's necessary and is cost efficient. One of the things that I want to do today is talk about a project that we're working on at the California Digital Library that I think illustrates how we're working in new ways with new partners. In January, the National Science Foundation declared that all people submitting grants to the NSF need to accompany their grant with a data sharing plan. And we came together with a group of stakeholders from across the country of 8 different institutions working together to develop what we're calling a data management planning tool. And this is institutions from the UCLA Library, the UC San Diego Library, but also the Smithsonian Institution, the University of Illinois, and it's their library along with their IT center, the Digital Curation Center in the UK, and also 2 NSF-funded initiatives, Data One and the Data Conservancy, to build a tool that will allow researchers to produce a credible and high-quality plan for managing data. And I think this is really key for libraries to be at the center of this, in that the libraries, they have been managing data for a long time. They were central to the neutral service providers often on our campuses. We're a trusted entity. Researchers don't want to have to intimately understand how to manage their data, and so the libraries can provide a real service to these institutions. So our partnership together illustrates that that the libraries are core in this initiative, but we're also working on our campuses with new partners in new ways. Within the University of California, we're working with our Contracts and Grants Office, our Office of Research, our Technology Transfer Office, and Intellectual Property Offices. This is a new requirement for them, and they're looking to the libraries to really help with this. We're working with our faculty and researchers in new ways they don't often understand what it is to make a compelling case for managing their data that they produce as part of a grant, so we can help them on that front. And also we're working with our data centers in new ways. And that they're helping us to understand how we can cost effectively manage that data going forward. So I think within our institutions, this is an opportunity to develop partnerships, and externally it's an opportunity to develop partnerships with institutions that have shared concern and will provide a way for libraries to work collaboratively with each other. So that's the end of my comments, and I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you to our 4 panelists for sharing your insights and reflections about the report. Now it is our listeners' turn. We will be happy to take questions from you for our speakers, the authors of the report, and our panelists. If you'd like to direct the question to a particular person, please do so. Again, I'm Sue Boffman, and in this final segment of the webcast, I will be fielding viewers' questions and posing them to our speakers. If you want to submit a question, please use the Ask a Question button located on your screen. While we're waiting for questions to come in, I have a question that I'd like to direct to Tyler and Katherine. You talk about building a trio of strong infrastructures, content, and services. Which of these do you see will be the most challenging to build and transform?
Now you're going to put us on the spot. Well, maybe I'll take a first stab at that. It is a trio. It's kind of a stacked deck. I think it's important to talk about that a little bit. I think there's even a finer grain of that where we're are looking at the base of networking and server infrastructure, and then you kind of go up from there and you're looking at application development and management and interface design, and then kind of using those tools, user training, promotion of those tools. That's even a denser pack to be looking at. But I don't know that one of these is any more difficult than another. It just depends a lot on where I think the library specifically is situated already. For some of us, we're going to have to pay attention to infrastructure, and I think the way we try to define that is when we say infrastructure, it's not just technology infrastructure. It's actually the true sense of the word cyber infrastructure, which includes policy and human resources. And I particularly think a lot about the human expertise that we need in our research libraries to do this kind of work. So I think that might be the hardest. The content itself is coming at us. It is rolling downhill faster than ever, and if we don't help manage it, somebody else will. So this is the decision I think that's in front of us. Services, of course, have their own challenges, but I think developing that infrastructure, both on the technology side, because it's going to be much bigger than it has been in the recent past, as well as the human expertise aspect of that. To me, that's the bigger challenge.
I agree with Tyler wholeheartedly. I think the infrastructure piece is where the greatest challenges are for us, and I think the degree of difficulty is going to depend on ARL priorities and attitudes, honestly. ARL libraries, that is. The human resources side of it is the piece that I think is both the most important right now for ARL directors in particular to be concentrating on, and also the most difficult in many ways, because it's the place where we have to think in path-breaking ways if we're going to embed librarians in different ways than we've done in the past within the overall campus infrastructure. And if we don't begin doing that, then then this kind of disjointed approach that most campuses have to creation and maintenance of digital technologies, of digital content, of digital services is likely going to continue to be disjointed, which is not going to be to any university's benefit, nor is it going to be to future scholars and future researchers' benefit when they try to access content that's been managed in too many disparate ways, many of which are not going to prove to be successful over time. We're in better shape when we act in a communal fashion, and I think that starting in that human resources arena and really giving some serious thought as to how to reach out across the different elements of campus, starting within the library itself, because again, as I said in my opening remarks, I think that most libraries that I've been exposed to especially are still struggling to integrate the digital function across all of the different branches of the library. So starting there, but then also moving at the same time, because we don't have a lot of time to waste right now, to integrating ourselves within the campus infrastructure and ensuring that our knowledge and our expertise in digital technologies and in digital curation are understood at the campus level and are honored at the campus level in a way that keeps us in a kind of driver's seat for the campus in terms of what happens to its digital content that is consistent with our role in the past with print-type content is both essential and is the biggest challenge that I think we have before us.
I would just like to quickly emphasize, this is Tyler, just what Katherine said about, I think we both have a real sense of urgency here.
Yes.
And it's not that any one party out there can really do all the things we need to do here, but there are cloud computing and cloud storage providers in this realm. There's other technology providers. There's just a wide realm of groups that are involved in this that provide some aspect of this, and I think working with some of those groups can be a great thing to do, as long as I think you've kind of developed your own strategic plan, what you feel is what is the core and unique role that your institution can play here, and how do you gather other partners kind of onto yourself to work with and complement the core things that you're doing, or building out some portion of the structure that that you need to have done that someone else is better suited to do. But again, I think there is a sense of urgency here. If we dilly-dally too long, others will happily try to go forth in this space.
I'm going to jump back in and doubly amplify what Tyler is saying, and do so from a sociological perspective. As some of you who are on the line likely know, I came to the library profession from the scholarly side of things. I was a graduate student at Emory University, earning my PhD in American Studies with a sociological bent, and I was studying the evolution of fields. How do new genres of music, for example, come into being? How do new industries spring up, and what are some of the things that we can see as normal trends that emerge as the actual new institutional forms also emerge? And the number one thing that sociology tells us is the innovations tend to come from a couple of core spaces, either on the outside, the outskirts of existing industries, or on the inside of existing industries. And what marks which direction it goes is how quickly the players step up to the new technologies or the new emerging pieces within the overall field that are handed to them. So being early adopters and being involved right now is imperative. We're already very far along in the overall shift to digital information, and we see corporate entities, we see not-for-profit entities, and we see the traditional not-for-profit entities like cultural memory organizations all vying for some of the same territory. And our roles as research libraries and as libraries moving forward are going to be determined by the actions that we take right now. So again, just highlighting that sense of urgency. This is not a time when we can sit back and wait for others to show us what the most effective means are going to be. This is the moment when we are shaping our own field, either through our passivity or through our actions.
Great. Thank you. And actually, as Tyler, you and Katherine have been responding to the first question, our listeners are sending us questions, so that's great. And one in particular is a little bit of a follow-up to something that you mentioned about the embedded librarian and that role of this embedded librarian. And the question is, could you expand that a little bit further and talk about, are there ways in which this role has been utilized in libraries so far that you are aware of?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. I think what we're trying to do here when we refer to embedded librarian is we're trying to take it from a very holistic point of view, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word, holistic, and that in a lot of ways in academic libraries we talk about embedded librarians and definitely with the thought of providing instructional partnerships in the classroom, for instance, and partnering on curriculum design, assignment design, and the like, and that's great. And I think we're kind of borrowing that phrase to broaden that out and to try to promote that sense that embedded librarians can also incorporate these aspects of developing, producing, managing, and disseminating digital resources that we kind of create and produce with faculty and other researchers on campuses. And I don't mean to exclude students either, because students, definitely we can work with students in this way. So I think that's kind of the realm that we're looking at. I mean, in the report, under kind of new roles for research librarians, we specifically try to lay out, the kinds of things that librarians can do with regard to digital curation. So I think that helps to flesh things out a little bit. But I think it's that embedded sense. When we have, subject librarians, or for instance here at Virginia Tech we call them college librarians, I think they really are the ambassador for the library and in that sense represent all of its services and capabilities. And I think that kind of person, they can't be, this rich, deep, librarian and technologist and digital curator and instructional specialist, and they can't do everything at once, but they can be aware enough of, what the library can do to add value in all of these realms to represent the library well, and then bring these potential partnerships back to people in the library who then can follow up in a more, involved and deeper way. So I think in terms of embedded librarian, that's the kind of role I think of, and I think we're looking to develop those librarians who are already doing this in other guises to think about that digital curation role as well.
The one thing that I'll jump in and add to that is that I think that this has to be a true outreach from the library in order for it to be effective, and that particularly with these digital technologies, and particularly for those institutions that want to do some of the production work, and I hope that will be many of our institutions, many of our libraries will take on that role, that making that available is not enough. Truly reaching out and making sure that our, whether it's our subject liaisons or subject librarians, college librarians, whatever we call them in our local instances, or whether it is, some sort of a data curation specialist, whatever the different titles are, and we give some examples in the report. The most important thing about that role is that those folks have to be able to truly go out into the community and sell what the library is offering, or else the library can offer lots and lots of things, and it's not going to actually materialize into useful things for the scholars and faculty members on the campus.
Great, thank you. Another question that's come in is this. The full information cycle can extend well beyond what libraries usually think about. How do you envision, for example, getting the cooperation of university units like offices of research and intellectual properties, i.e. commerce? And perhaps one of the panelists would like to answer this. Oya, do we throw it over to you?
Sure. And actually, maybe I will answer that question with an example. Our recent work on NSF data plan, it really was based on a collaboration, recognizing that there were distributed capacities to be able to assist faculty in creating data plans. So Librarian worked with a data center called CISR at Cornell, and another center that is specializing on more data-driven science on the high end. And we even worked with sponsored programs, and it was also very much guided by the interest of the sponsored programs and Vice Provost for Research. So if you actually look at Cornell's site for data plan, you really are seeing 5-6 partners, even University Council's office involved with IPR issues. So that's just one example. But I want to really stress that I think one of the important things was it didn't come only from the library, that the Vice Provost for Research was a very strong voice and set the tone to, in a way, emphasize the importance of this process for the university.
Great, thank you. Another question from one of our listeners. I noticed that collaboration is used instead of consortium. First, is there a difference, or are these two concepts being used interchangeably among digital communities? And I think maybe throw this back to Tyler and Katherine.
Yeah, Katherine, why don't you take a stab at that?
Okay, I'll take first stab at that. I think that they can be used interchangeably to a degree, but I think there can be moments where our collaboration is not as strict as a consortium might indicate. So there are different levels of collaboration that are taking place, and there are different types of collaboration. There are the intra-institutional collaborations that are happening across the different units of the campus, which is one of the things that Tyler and I wanted to highlight, and thus use the term collaboration in those instances. And then there are also the interinstitutional or across-institution types of collaborations. And I think some of those happen at a consortial level, at a very, polished or, set kind of organizational apparatus that the consortium indicates. But some of those happen in more ad hoc fashions, and we wanted to leave room for both of those levels of activities. So our use of the word, while not something that Tyler and I necessarily discussed, I think was deliberate towards collaboration rather than consortia, again, honoring that this is happening in lots of different manners, not just in existing or new consortia. Another thing that I'll comment on is that the concept of consortia is morphing a little bit, I think, into a bigger question mark around how we collaborate within and beyond our community overall. And one of the most challenging things that I think we're seeing, whether this is happening at the national level with the viewpoint of Library of Congress, or whether this is happening at more local levels with those of us who have been involved in grant projects that, produce beautiful works of scholarship or produce beautiful, digital technologies that then become outmoded because the grant recipient institution somehow inherits the responsibility of upkeep in a way that just isn't feasible for any one institution to do. Many institutions come together, build something, and then suddenly the collaboration doesn't, necessarily develop into something that is long-term. And so there's this space between the collaboration and the consortium model that we aren't yet sure how to fill. And I think one of the things that many of us are studying, whether you're talking about Quali or Educopia or any of the other groups that are coming forward to try to build ways for libraries to collaborate with one another without huge infrastructural commitments towards another entity, is that we do need new models for this, so that we aren't so that we aren't necessarily creating the bulky infrastructures that I think we see often in consortial, and I don't mean across the board, but often in consortial relationships. But instead are building more lightweight apparati that don't take a lot to upkeep, but that build the kind of permanence that we need for projects as they turn into programs that should be kept long term. Again, whether we're talking about those on the digital scholarship side or whether we're talking about those on the infrastructural side, because both of those are going to need new types of custodians and need new types of relationships. They can't be bound just to one institution, and that may not be able to be encompassed by existing relationships like what the consortia provide at this point in time.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for the conversation. We have a number of questions that we didn't get to or were not able to pass along to our authors and panelists. So we'll follow up with them to see if we can provide answers to these additional questions that we just couldn't get to. But I wanted to thank Tyler and Katherine very much for sharing your insights to the writing of the report and the issues and challenges you think are key for us to understand and think about. And a big thank you to our panelists, Jeremy, Martha, Oya, and Patricia, for sharing your reactions and reflections. Finally, thank you to all of you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and questions with us. And as I said, we'll follow up with the questions and hopefully be able to answer all of them for you. The webcast is being recorded, and we will be announcing how people can access the archive in the next few days. Please remember that there will be formal reports to follow in the New Roles for New Times series, and we will announce webcasts to follow the release of each report as we have done today. So thank you again, and have a great day.